poppin' YouTube? My name's Gray, you're watching a sword and sandals edition of Consoletronix, as I'll be looking at a game based on the camper than a row of tents Conan ripoff, He-Man, in Masters of the Universe Defender of Grayskull for the PS2. Now, full disclosure, I am definitely not what you would call a He-Man fan. I caught a few episodes of the original cartoon on TV as a kid, and I am seemingly the only person alive who remembers the disastrous late 80s relaunch, which came and went faster than a horny mayfly. But in the early years of the 21st century, something would happen that would catch out a lot of companies. And that was an entire generation that had been raised on 80s cartoons and video games found themselves employed with disposable income in their pockets and nostalgia in their hearts. And with the internet becoming more and more accessible, suddenly 20-somethings everywhere started going back and trying to buy up all the old vintage toys, video games and comics they either had as kids or could never get hold of when young. And it's into this weird, quick jump on this nostalgia-fueled bandwagon before it fizzles out corporate mentality that is peculiar and officially licensed, though not based on any specific running series, video game adaptation of Mattel's attempt to replicate their Barbie sales with dolls for boys came about. Developed and released exclusively in Europe, which never really took to He-Man the same way as American kids did, but that being said, most fans on either side of the Atlantic have never heard of it, despite it being something of a follow-up to a US exclusive Game Boy Advance title from a couple of years prior. But enough dancing around the deflection maypole. What are my thoughts on Defenders of Grayskull? Well, it's bad, and I mean really bad, but there are levels to bad. Something can be, for example, so bad it becomes good in a weird sort of way. Or you could develop an appreciation of what the developers were trying to do and at least respect their misplaced ambition. But alas, there's simply nothing redeemable about this one. It's boring, bland, repetitive gameplay made recording footage for this video an ordeal to say the least. For starters, an action game should be built upon its combat system. I don't expect God of War standard action in my licensed games, but for all the moves and combos it tries to throw your way, you will simply resort to button mashing rather than trying to fruitlessly rein in the wayward camera. But for me at least, the one thing that boiled my piss above all others was the jumping. The simple act of leaping from one spot to the next, here reduced to the whims of fate. Will I make it across this fordable chasm? Don't know. Will my character even jump after I tell him to? God only knows. But sometimes you just might get lucky, as even the computer can struggle with the dodgy controls, such as the rather nasty penultimate boss, Panther, leaping to his own demise, saving me the trouble of having to replay one of the harder boss battles. And while there are those who might say, well, you just didn't like it because you're not into He-Man, let me remind you that I have, over the years, gotten into seemingly impenetrable fandoms like Gundam and Fist of the North Star because I enjoyed playing many of the games from these respective franchises. And while it seems He-Man will be with us in one form or another for a while yet, as a couple of dodgy animated shows have disappointed fans old and new, and another live-action movie is also being mooted, perhaps He-Man isn't ready to collect his mass media pension just yet. But if the American entertainment landscape of the last few years is anything to go by, it might be kinder to take him behind the shed and just shoot him. So I said fuck it and let Skeletor conquer Grayskull, because at this point I'd rather have a diabolically evil skeleton in a skimpy loincloth as my ruler than Rishi Sunak. So my name's Gray, you've been watching Consoletronix, more videos coming your way soon, so thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, goodbye.